What is up, everybody? Blake the Scholar of Magic here, and today I have a really kind of interesting concept, and I call it the Commander Clash. And what the Commander Clash is it's basically like highlighting two commanders at once. I've typically only done like one, feature at a time, but I was like, man, I think I'm ready just for like kind of a comparison. And what we'll do in this feature is we'll look at each of the decks. We'll just kind of get an idea of kind of what's going on for each of them, and then we'll deal some hands out, and then maybe you could decide like maybe your first impressions of just right now. Maybe you comment like, who do you think is like a stronger commander? Like, who do you think maybe does it better? And the two we're dealing with today, the first is Meria, the Scholar of Antiquity. She's just a lovely commander, and she's a Gruul colors, meaning red and green in a color identity. She's one generic, one mountain, one forest, legendary creature, elf artificer. Tap an untapped non-token artifact you control, add forest. Tap two untapped non-token artifacts you control. Exile the top card of your library. You may play it this turn. Does well with just basically your non-token artifacts. Just basically the ones that you cast from your hand. You can't tap treasures, for instance, for mana with Maria, but you can go ahead and tap like for instance your Howling Mines. You can go ahead and tap down your vehicles, for instance. And that's what this deck is mainly centered. This is a vehicle deck, so we should be very excited about this one. We're going to definitely take a look at that in a moment. The next commander here we have is Arwen the Mortal Queen, and she is a 3-costed commander as well. Selesnya color identity, green and plain, or green forest and plains. One generic, one forest, one plains, 3 cost total, legendary creature elf noble. Arwen Mortal Queen enters the battlefield with an indestructible counter on it. Pay 1. Remove an indestructible counter from Arwen. Another target creature gains indestructible until end of turn. Put a 1/1 counter and a lifelink counter on that creature, and a 1/1 counter and a lifelink counter on Arwen. So this is definitely a 1/1 counter synergy type of card built around that. It's really has a nice little aspect of indestructibility. Its primary focus is accruing indestructible counters, and then dishing those out to its creatures to make them stronger and have lifelink. So overall, just a very strong commander in general. So let's just kind of first maybe just kind of glance at some of the cards in each of the decks and just kind of get an idea. You can kind of get some flavor. Like for instance, in this Meria deck, you're going to see a lot of graveyard matters things. You're going to see some ways to resurrect the artifacts from our graveyard to our battlefield. In addition, you're going to see some really nasty vehicles. We like the vehicles. They definitely kind of sit to the side. They're very evasive. They don't like stay into the board until they're ready to be basically tap other creature powers that are already on the battlefield to be summoned into that battlefield to be able to attack in general. So obviously a highlight of this particular deck is like a Reaver Titan. Obviously, the faster we can get a Reaver Titan out and attacking into our opponents, we will be definitely winning the game much sooner. That's a 10-10. It's a good 10-10 too. It's not like a Leviathan 10-10. It's actually a good one. So yeah, and we just kind of rip through here, and you kind of get an idea. Yeah, we're definitely doing some artifact stuff. Definitely low to the ground Maria things. Definitely some really beautiful, just generic colored artifacts here. That's where Maria really loves. She just kind of loves, putting artifacts to the battlefield and tapping them for green mana. That's really kind of the gist. So you can get into bigger stuff. You can get the impulse draw by just tapping 2 of these artifacts down. For instance, if you're, basically if they're summoning sick or they're just generic Swiftfoot boots, you can just tap these down at 2 at a time to get an impulse draw and get a card off your library, and you can play it for the end of turn. That's some really nice stuff. We even play like a really cheeky Wheel of Fortune in here just for the funsies. And maybe we'll get it sometimes. It'll be fun for the whole table, I guarantee it. So, yeah, just some nice kind of like stuff here. Nothing too crazy. Just kind of in the slot. It's just a nice one. You're just going to have fun here with this one. And, it's vehicles. I even have the Mech Titan core in this deck. I even got the token. So, I'm all set. I'm all set. So here's a Mesmeric Orb. Yeah, that's just a really nasty one, right? Portal to Phyrexia. Yeah, this is a really fun deck. Oh, the Lumbering World Wagon. Very nice. Yeah, and we even get to play like the Blasphemous Axe and not even feel too sad about it because we're playing so many vehicles. So like, we can just always recast Meria, and the vehicles just kind of, like I said, they sit to the side. They're like, hey, I don't care about the Blasphemous Axe. When you're ready to bring me out, just tap some creatures down and bring me out to fight. So we just love that. And yeah, some Underworld Breach. Yeah, just some building the graveyard stuff. Some nice cards here in general. Just overall really solid stuff. So that's the Meria deck. So I'm kind of curious, like which one you think is kind of gonna, kind of make an impression on you. So let's get Arwen's out, kind of take a look at Arwen's. I just recently did a deck tech on this one. I definitely did goldfish it a little bit more, and I definitely put in more lands. So that will definitely be like kind of, impressed upon this deck. I think it did need a little bit more lands. I think it was running like 36. I think I got it to 38 pretty comfortably. Wasn't too bad. But the primary objective is basically put a lot of creatures to the board, accrue counters, get into some bigger spells. Like we have some really big top end spells like Vorinclex and Norn's Choirmaster. So, and those all just have really good synergy with their commander. They bring like proliferation. I'd say that 99% of the cards have to do with like putting on counters or doubling counters in some way, or putting an additional counter on things. Obviously you have some single target removal here, but pretty much other than the ramp, we're basically just running 1/1 counters on most of the stuff. There's a Vorinclex. Really nasty guy there. So yeah, we just love that. Have a little bit of a landfall theme here too, because most of the 1/1 counter cards have to do with lands. So Skycath Cub just loves additional lands to hit the board. So we're gonna play like Ordeal of Nylea. We're also gonna be playing God, what's his face? Kodama. Yeah, we have all those kind of like landfall payoffs. So yeah, we got a little bit of that action even in Nissa. That'll be nice. These Lazal and Pier, they're very good. They basically assist in getting additional indestructible counters. For instance, if we cast Lazal first before Arwen, and then we put Arwen, then Arwen will simply enter with an additional indestructible counter. And then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to proliferate onto all your stuff, including Arwen, and that way you can create more indestructible counters. That's the name of the game. When you have about 3 or 4 indestructible counters on Arwen, you're doing the thing, because you can kind of keep indestructibility on your creatures. You can pump them up, give them lifelink and additional counters. And a lot of our cards just love to see that. Like whenever something is put on a counter, put an additional counter or double the counters. So, I mean, this is a new card, Exemplar Light, just draws a tons of cards for us. It's just some nasty cards in here in general. The Great Henge, in fact. The new Jumpstart cards are crazy. Of course, we talked about the Skycath Cub. Generous Pup also just kind of works into their bristly bill, just delivering a ton of counters. Your creature is going to get very strong and very hard to deal with. Exile is primarily the way to deal with this deck, but otherwise, oh god, this card in here, Angel of Destiny. I'm telling you, if this thing, you hide away with your Collector's Cage or Fight Rigging, bust this sucker out and swing with it the next turn, you're usually going to take out an opponent, because you'll definitely have about 80 life on average with this particular card. Arwen, she just gains a lot of life. You're definitely not going to really lose too much on combat damage, I guarantee that. It'd have to be through other means. So that's kind of the vibes for both. So kind of curious what you all think. Make sure you hit a subscribe for me, because we're doing some fun stuff today. And then we can kind of get your overall impression of like perhaps which one do you think will do better. So let's kind of look at some hands. We're going to start with Meria first. She definitely won the coin flip for me. she's my favorite commander. So let's just put her to the side here. Let's turn this over. Deal out a couple, maybe like probably 2 hands, and just kind of see what we're dealing with here. And just kind of see what our action is. So, Yeah, this is like a nicely curved hand, you know. So, yeah, nothing too to scoff at here. I mean, I think you're just kind of always in love with like a volatile Wanderglyph. You know, in most circumstances, this card is a nice one with Meria because it can be tapped with Meria, like voluntarily for mana, and then you get to loot. You get to build your graveyard too at the same time because whenever this becomes tapped, you may discard a card if you do draw a card. So that's just some very nice action there. Let's take a draw to see kind of what we're going to be up. And then a Mox Opal is just a very good start, I think. You know, this will be enabled sooner than later. Sometimes you can even get ahead of it. If you do, like, for instance, get into some more zero drops, you can actually, like, use them as, like, kind of an accelerant rather than just Meria tapping them for mana, which is great in general. Like, the zero drops being able to be tapped for mana is wonderful, but sometimes even with an opal, you can have like a couple artifacts out, even, you know, to actually cast Meria, which would be kind of amazing as well. So yeah, that's kind of a nice little start here. I mean, you because of the Haywire Might, you probably could just do Stomping Ground and just kind of get your colors pretty swell, and then just lead with your Might, get into your opal here. You draw for your next turn, of course. And that's pretty great. That's a Mishra's Bauble. So, yeah, we can go ahead and just accelerate into Meria, Speak of the Devil. We can just save a little bit of life here. And then, I mean, probably want to just go Meria. 90% of the time, I think, you probably want to go Meria. Obviously, this would be even more nutted if, like, we had, like, a 2-drop generic artifact here. Because we could actually just cast Meria simply by tapping the opal because we meet the requisite for our artifacts, for 3 artifacts at once. And then you'd have these 2 left over, and then you have Meria. In this circumstance, it's probably in your best interest to actually just like pop the bauble, it looks like, because we do have the Wanderglyph to kind of return on our opal. And actually opal is just turned on in general because Meria is on the battlefield. And we do want to start building our graveyard. Vault or Wanderglyph can start looting as well, which would be very nice for the next turn, of course. So you probably just want to go ahead and simply, like, you know, crack this down. You could even, even if you want to get a little crazy, you could even impulse this for like another 0-drop, which we don't have too many of those, so we got kind of fortunate. So I probably just pop this because we want to start building our graveyard. Obviously on our next turn we get 2 cards because of the bauble. They're just lands. I think this is when kind of like how like the Wanderglyph really kind of starts shining. You could even start with like a surveil, like off of this Verdant Catacombs. So for instance, if we surveilled this land, just pop this and just went to a surveil land. A breach is pretty good. Our graveyard is not too swell yet, but we could probably save that for later, I suppose. So probably just you know, keep that one on top. Our turn would kind of be somewhat saddened a little bit through here by keeping that on top. But I mean, obviously the glyph can loot. We can also impulse at the very least. And we did play you know, a surveil as well. So I don't know if there's any way to get that breach back. And our library isn't too jiggy. So maybe perhaps, I know it kind of seems psycho, but maybe we just let the breach go on that circumstance. We definitely want to get our glyph down and with Meria, you want to keep some, you know, red mana available because, you know, I say even probably tap the Haywire Might for mana is fine. Keep some red mana available because all your artifacts will tap for green. So you definitely want to keep some red available. The glyph seems kind of interesting here at this point. And what you're going to want to do is, in this circumstance, probably just impulse draw these 2. Because we got nothing going on in the hand here. Just lands in a Scrap Mastery. That way we can start looting as well. So we'll just draw and then discard. That's a Stomp. And that would not really be castable under any circumstance, but it does kind of get us closer. So I can just drop that in there. Seems fine. And we got a couple cards in the graveyard. We're kind of building it for our other cards as well. Yeah, so then we go to our next turn here. Go ahead and untap this. We have lots of mana available, so let's get these separated here. We had our Surveil land here as well, and we'll just go ahead and use this as to represent that. Let's imagine that we fetched that up. And now what we can do here, we just drew into our Paradise Mantle. And like I said, we have a lot of, possibilities with this Wanderglyph. It's probably like one of our better cards. I like the Paradise Mantle too, because you can turn Meria into a mana dork. So you can basically just play this for 0 and then tap it. Now Meria can tap for mana. That's pretty clever. We can kind of impulse draw off of this once again. You can even just tap this for mana. That is true. But the impulse will give you an additional card. And I don't even know if we actually impulsed off of this. We looted, but I don't think we impulsed. So we kind of missed an impulse on that. But you can see we get in some really nice gasoline here. Got the Smuggler's Copter, Mech Titan Core. This is kind of the snowbally stuff that we're like kind of into. And then we kind of really get into our goodies with the vehicles. Assemble the vehicles, having like kind of these little things to eat with the Mech Titan Core, assemble the Mech Titan Core, and that's kind of the gist of the deck. So that's kind of a little nice showing there. It kind of got hot there in the beginning. And obviously the Wanderglyph is the A+ of this show. Now, I think there is ways for us to build this graveyard a little bit better. And I'm thinking probably like the Saren Steel Seeker might be like a good way to do that. We definitely kind of want some more ways to build a graveyard, because we want our breaches, and obviously Wheel of Fortune is very good at that. We want our breaches to be better. We want our scrap masteries to be good. We don't want them to be poor. That's for certain. We want to build our graveyard as much as possible. So I'll put the list in the description too if you have any ideas, but maybe perhaps for a cut or two, just so we can get like a Saren Steel Seeker in. I do like Noxious Revival. I don't know how much it would progress us in that particular instance. I think I want more like ways to build a graveyard. I would prefer that, because we do have cards like more explosive bombs in general. So let's see here. This is our Meria deck. I just want her in the front. There she is. All right, so that's a look at Meria. Let's take a look at Arwen, the Mortal Queen. So there she is. Let's just shuffle this up a little and get some cards ready. All right, are we ready? All right, let's take a look. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It looks keepable. I mean, maybe a couple draws at a curvy Arwen here. Got the bird too. I love the bird. The bird and the Ordeal seem fairly good. A couple of lands here. Collector's Cage seems okay. The Exemplar seems really good for gasoline, so pretty swell hand here overall. So of course we just for the sake of saving time, we'll just imagine that we did this, and we'll go ahead and play our bird for the turn. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We'd also draw, of course. That's nice. A Hushwood Verge. These are the Verge lands. Just come in untapped. They're just very effective for us. So we go to draw for our second turn. Another Prismatic Vista. That's good for our landfall. We can kind of save those. Kind of go right to the Arwen action. Just kind of right immediately. Nothing really to think about at this point. Let's go ahead and draw for our third turn. Now, probably this is kind of when the kind of some of the decision making needs to start. So what we'll have a decision to do is we'll have basically have 4 mana total. The Ordeal Annihilea is an interesting one. Basically, how this would function in this circumstance is we would still not meet the criteria for the 3/1/1 counters, even if we did move a counter, which we really isn't in our best interest. So I wouldn't say like the ordeal is kind of ready at this time. The exemplar would probably take most of our mana. We do not have lifelink on anything yet, so it would just basically sit there for the turn. The other idea is to move into a collector's cage. I think I'm sort of starting to see the kind of the line here would be probably to move into our exemplar, and then we'll have a collector's cage online next turn, which would be very nice. So we'd probably just go ahead and go into the overgrown tomb here, or overgrown farmland, because we've reached our third land for the criteria. 4 lands total now. And then we go ahead and play this nice little exemplar. So I'd say like this particular deck functions much easier than the Meria deck. It's just there's a lot more game actions with Meria, and that's kind of the appeal to it. It's very explosive too. You gain like lots of value. This is kind of like very kind of seamless Magic, more RNG based, especially like with cards like Collector's Cage. So we'd move to our turn 4 here. Hopefully none of our things have died yet. We drew another land here. And we go ahead and play this Plains for turn, no big deal. We'd probably move into the Collector's Cage here. Just go ahead and play that. Looks like we could probably go ahead and move the counter to our homie. Let's pay the mana as well. Move the counter to our exemplar. That would trigger the exemplar. Go ahead and draw from that. Also, actually, we have to hide away first. Hide away for the it's hide away 5. So when this artifact enters the battlefield, like the top 5 cards of your library, exile 1, face down, and put the rest in the bottom in random order. Ooh. Oh baby, I like all these choices really. I like a Johnny because that sucker just like gets your counters moving, it kind of does everything we want. The thing about the evolution stage though is we do have fetch lands in hand. And having those fetch lands in hand really make it appeasing because you're going to start, that's our primary goal, is to get the proliferate so we can get an additional indestructible counters on Arwen. That's really the name of the game. The 1/1 counters are good, but it's really the proliferate so that we can get more indestructible counters on Arwen. That's really the key. So we'd probably hide away the evolution stage in this instance, I think. Just as so. That would pop up just like so because we reached that criteria here. And now this makes me think like maybe I should not have played land for turn yet. Because that way, if I had not, I'd still be able to Collector's Cage. I still would have been able to do this. We'd still be able to do all the things we wanted. And then additionally, we would have been able to hide away into an evolution stage. And then I could have played a fetch land. And that is going to get really crazy because we'd be proliferating, homies. And this is going to get a counter. And this is going to get more indestructible counters. And then I could start dishing these counters at will. And it's going to be nice. What you want to do is move to your opponent's end step. And like you're basically like untouchable. You can dish out indestructibility to this homie. Like you're pretty good. And move to end step, for instance, on your player's end step. And then you can go ahead, because she'll have 2 indestructible counters from the proliferate. You can dish one of them out, proliferate again by cracking your Vista. And then you could proliferate that once more. Like for instance, you can move like a counter to your exemplar because you can just keep drawing off of that and make a really nasty angel here. And we could even start, beginning the process of putting the counters on the evolution stage as well, because you've proliferated 2 indestructibility counters, and you'd still have 1 remaining. So you can move, like for instance, 1 over there, and one over here. I believe you'd have the mana to do so. It kind of appears that way. At least one. And you probably want to draw and make this a little larger, but I'm just thinking of like spreading it out, because if you proliferate, then everything's getting, the counters are getting bigger for everybody. But yeah, you probably draw for that exemplar. Selesnya Sanctuary is cool for the landfall, kind of aspect. Kind of keep the lands flowing. The Ordeal in Nylea kind of gets really, kind of stupefied here, because, you're just basically going to be, swinging with one of these creatures, preferably any of them, and then you're going to get 2 more basic lands out of that. It's going to reach the criteria. You're going to trigger the proliferate some more. We could even get into the Rishkar's expertise next turn. Looks like you'd have 6 mana total. You can go like Rishkar, you'd probably have a big angel that's 6 cards just there in general. Oh my God, a Norn's Choir Master. My God. But, preferably, you don't really want to tap out with Arwen, because you want to keep like an indestructible counter kind of available. So that's kind of the gist of the deck. This was very fun. I think this is kind of the way I want to go. This was very fun for me. This was a test. I hope you enjoyed it, but we got to kind of do a commander clash today. And I'm kind of curious what you all think. Like, who do you think does it better? And I hope you guys take a look at the list. I know definitely what we learned from here. Definitely want like a Saren Steel Seeker. Definitely to build a graveyard up a little bit better. There's no doubt about it. In terms of like finding, like I said, finding a cut is somewhat hard. But like I think the Noxious Revival, like it's cool. I like the idea of getting back into the graveyard. It is interesting. There's no doubt about it, but we're just kind of very vehicle centered. And I just don't know. I just don't know about it. It's kind of hard to tell. But yeah, we're definitely going to want to have ways to build a graveyard more. And we have like the goblins too to kind of get the action from it. So yeah, let me know what you think about the decks, and I hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.